Hello, welcome to Once Upon a Surgery. I'm the host, Carrie Berlet, wife of world-renowned plastic surgeon Dr. Anthony Berlet. We're here to spill the tea over plastic surgery. And today specifically, we're going to talk about botched plastic surgery. I have my beautiful guest, the young, lovely Angelica. She is actually an influencer, and she has been through quite a journey. And I really am ready to do a deep dive into her experience and everything she's been through. And so I just want to say thank you, Angelica, for coming to Once Upon a Surgery. I'm so happy to have you. Cheers. All right, and so talk to me, you had a youth where you were in the spotlight, right? And and you were unhappy with some, part, with your nose. And I want to hear about like when that started and what your journey was like when you made a decision to take action.
So I always had a cute little button nose. I always did. It was a cute little button nose. It was the side profile was that perfect little slope that you always want. Then somewhere around 12, 13, 14, it was a slope indeed.
Really?
It was a slope that way. So
it's like somehow it just grew at that age, right?
It was, yes, because of puberty, my nose started getting bigger and wider and a bulbous tip. And I was a little self-confident. I was a little self-conscious about it. I wanted to get it fixed. And I had gotten my ears done.
Right.
I was born with a deformity in my ears.
Okay.
So I got them fixed and they came out great. I was happy with them. So I figured a year later, I'm gonna go to the same surgeon.
Because you felt you trusted him.
I trusted him. I thought he did a great job. I think, I thought he had a great bedside manner, and I decided to get my nose done.
And were your parents supportive of this? Like your family? Okay.
Yes.
They felt like it was, you had, like, it could be improved, right?
Well, my mom always had a really beautiful nose, and, that's my mother, so I looked up to her.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to them I wanted to get my nose done, and they were very supportive about it. So I went to him, we went over the plan, showed some inspiration pictures, and then
you were how old at that point? You were
15 years old.
15, okay.
And so I woke up from surgery and my mom told me that it went 3 hours longer. The doctor had come out, said he needed more money because I was using the operating room longer.
Okay, so they give me cash? Like I need to stay in the room longer? Like what?
I guess so.
Wow. I didn't know it worked like that.
I didn't have any red flags. There wasn't an excessive amount of bleeding or bruising. It looked fine in the cast.
Okay.
I got the cast taken off and most people would think my reaction would be like, oh my, I'm botched. But no. I was like, I'm swollen. I prepared myself for this. I watched a lot of videos.
Because it's a journey usually when you have a rhinoplasty, right?
They said, don't freak out. It's swollen. It's how when you get the cast off, that's not how it's going to look.
Okay.
So they put the tape on, and I went back a week later, and he took the tape off. First thing I said was, I look like a cat. I look like a cat. I turned to the side. I'm looking in the mirror. It's not a cute...
So it's like a mush, or like what's the cat? It's...
Like, how cats have that like rectangle nose?
Yes.
And on the left side, it was kind of caving in a little.
Really?
I didn't have any breathing problems.
Okay.
That wasn't like...
So it was still functional, but it just kind of malformed, or?
Yes. Okay. And it looked very, from like a mid-side profile, it was very flat-like. So...
And before it was bulbous, it went from bulbous to flat.
Yes, from bulbous to flat, and then at the bottom, it looked like it was like dripping a little.
Really?
It gave a drip effect, where it's like the cartilage at the bottom was hanging down instead of being that perfect, tip where it's like you don't really see the bottom of the nose from the profile.
Oh my God.
But instead you saw it. I didn't panic right away because
because sometimes it might have just been a work in progress, like as part of the healing, it might go through phases or something.
Everyone said on the videos I would watch that it's going to be swollen and you have to give it time. I would say about a month later, I was watching a video and they said 95% of swelling goes down in that first month. And I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Because there's no way that this is going to look how I want it to look. So I went back to him and he was like, well, if you're not happy with the results, I could, write you up a quote right now to, for your second nose job, and I could go back in. And
so even though, because usually I would think that you shouldn't have to pay more.
Exactly. I would think that if you're unhappy, let's go back in and let's fix it how you want. So he gave me a quote. It wasn't as much as the original nose job, but he was like, it's not really a nose job. It's going to be just like a tweaking. And I felt betrayed. I felt like, how could someone, take the money of parents who just want to make their child feel confident and happy?
Right, that's the goal, especially at such a young age.
When, young girls are on social media, especially like I was, constantly on the feed, the explore page, you would see unrealistic expectations. You do. You see, especially as a young girl who didn't fully grow into herself, I saw unrealistic expectations of how people looked, and I wanted to look like that. And to wake up from surgery and think that I got my wish, and then to be sadly mistaken, was like severely heartbreaking. I would stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning every single night, staring at my nose, crying, hoping that there was something that someone could do. My family would tell me that, you don't want to be like Michael Jackson, who just kept wanting a smaller and smaller nose.
Right, but it wasn't that it was smaller, it was that it was like literally malformed, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. So I spoke to a few of my friends, and they had told me that they had a friend who got her nose done, and they showed me her picture, and I was like, that's a beautiful nose. Can you find out the surgeon for me?
Okay.
So they found out the surgeon, they told me it's Dr. Berlet.
Okay.
And so when I went to your husband,
yeah,
the first thing that he told me was, I don't think that your nose was broken. I don't think.
And is that, so that's standard and when you have a rhinoplasty, they break your nose, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He told me it was partially collapsed. And.
But you could still breathe even though it's partially collapsed.
Yes, I was still able to breathe. I never had any breathing problems like with the nose. It was just very, very offensive looking. And he told me I have to wait a year to get it fixed because, that's standard procedure with a nose job, is waiting a year to touch it again.
Which is like an eternity when you're only 15 years old or, however long.
It really was an eternity. And it was hard because that's the age where everyone's taking pictures with their friends and posting it on social media. And I didn't want to take a picture.
So with pictures, my daughter is 14 now, and it's an event, right? When you go somewhere, that's the thing girls do, is they go in the bathroom or wherever it is, or you're in a beautiful scene, you take the selfies, and it's almost like part of, your night is like the posing, right?
I wouldn't take a picture without a filter on. And it was kind of degrading because of the fact that one of my friends would be like, let's take a picture. I'd be like, oh, do you have a filter on it? I didn't know what to do. I had, I dreamed of having a beautiful nose like my mom did, and to wake up with a nose that was worse than the original was defeating.
That's terrible.
I just wanted it to be fixed. That's what I wanted. I felt like.
Were girls mean, or was anyone mean about it? Because did people knew that you had your nose done and were unhappy, or were you private about it?
I was pretty open about it.
Okay.
I was pretty open about it. I wanted.
In this area, it's very common. But
yes, it is very. I wanted someone to, above everything, agree with me.
You wanted validation.
I
for,
wanted
like,
someone to
yeah.
say, I see what you're seeing. I see what you're seeing. I do think it looks like a cat. I see what you're seeing. I understand why you're upset. I didn't really get that from anyone in the family.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. My mom would tell me that it looks beautiful, and my dad too, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard for me to talk about because it just was a time in my life where I felt extremely vulnerable.
It's
and
a difficult
lonely.
time even without this, right?
Yes,
and yeah.
it is. Then my grandmother came over, and she has glaucoma. So
Okay.
she went blind in one eye, and she lost the majority of her vision in the other.
Okay.
And she was looking at me, and I remember her looking at me a little strange. Like she was studying my face. But I didn't really think anything of it. And about a week later, she called my mom up, and she goes, Angelica with you? And my mom said no.
And you were with her?
No,
Oh,
no.
right.
She ended up telling me the story
Okay.
because she thought that I would at least find some peace in the fact.
Right.
She said to my mom, there's something wrong with that nose. There's something
Wow.
wrong with it. So she was the first person to agree with what I was seeing. And the second person to agree with what I was seeing is your husband.
Oh, wow.
He knew exactly what was wrong with it. The second I walked in, he saw everything that I saw.
Good.
What was very heartbreaking to hear
I mean, yeah.
was that he felt that it was going to take 2 surgeries
Ugh.
to give me the nose that I wanted. And as a 15-year-old, knowing that I had 2 surgeries ahead of me, I was very upset.
That's daunting. I mean, and
I thought, how is this even possible that you need to get operated on 2 times to restore my nose back to a normal state?
wow.
And
did he have like a plan? Like, was he like, it's gonna be 2 surgeries and this time frame? Because I know the first year with with the nose you were unhappy with felt so long.
we took it one step at a time.
Okay.
So we got, we set a date for the first nose job.
Okay.
I went for it, and I was extremely happy with it. I
Okay.
didn't even have the second surgery on my mind for a
Oh,
lot of
good.
years.
Okay.
I was very, very happy with it. But I would see him for steroid shots ever so often.
Because that's part of the maintenance afterwards,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have very thick skin, so steroid shots are great for thinning down the skin.
Okay.
So I had gotten a lot over the course of, a few years. So I went to him again last year, and I said, let's do it now. Let's do that second surgery that we've been talking about, for so long, and let's make it perfect.
So in terms of the 2 phases, like what was fixed in the first phase versus the second phase? Like it was just so damaged that it took 2 times, right?
Well, after the first time that, he did my nose, it was beautiful. It just, there was the part that was collapsed was still a little indented, but not anything that your average person would notice.
Right.
It's just that's something that him and I noticed because, when I came to visit him to get my steroid shot,
Right.
that's all we would talk about is
right.
my nose. And he said to me, millimeters are like miles on a nose. So we both had agreed that we should do this second one to just perfect it. And I totally could have lived with the nose that he gave after the first surgery. I very much could have lived with it. I just figured, why not just make it perfect?
Right. Okay. And then were you under anesthesia both times, or what was that process like?
So the first time I was in an operating room, I was completely under. So I obviously don't have any recollection of the events.
Right. And that recovery, was it very different that time when you took the tape off versus that first one?
Versus, you mean the first
The botched,
one?
yeah.
So I would say that they were very similar recoveries. That's what's very interesting about the first one. It had no red flags. It wasn't like I was excessively bleeding or anything like that, or pain or excessive bruising. None of the sort.
Okay.
It was just like the second time. It was completely the same. Now, the third nose job, that time we did it right in his office.
What? Without like anesthesia? You could just like do your nose? Oh,
Well, and yeah, well,
Okay.
it wasn't.
but it was just like, because it was a revision, like a tip.
It was
yes.
a very, no, it was,
Okay.
I don't know exactly what it's called, a tip-plasty.
Okay.
It wasn't
Right.
anything to do with the bone or anything
Right.
like
no,
that.
no breaking again or anything.
No
Yes.
breaking
Okay.
again. So it was it felt very fast. It was extremely fast, but I was slightly sedated
Right.
and I felt extremely calm. Like I wasn't,
Wow.
I fully trusted him. So I
That's
wasn't,
great.
I wasn't concerned at all. And I remember like little bits and parts of it. But and then I got the cast on again, and that time that was a very easy recovery time because there wasn't a broken nose underneath
Okay,
it.
right.
Very little swelling, bruising, very little, barely any bleeding at
Okay.
all. I would say compared to the first two, like it was
Right.
very minimal. And I had a cast on for about a week, I think it was.
Okay.
And when I went to his office and he took it off, it already looked beautiful. Both times it looked beautiful when he did it.
When you took it off, you were like happy. It was like a good review,
I was
right?
happy. It wasn't extremely swollen. It
Okay.
was swollen. And
right,
then,
which it is, yeah. When you first take off, it's not going to be the final product, but you had a
Yes.
good feeling. Okay.
And then, of course, he did the nose squeezing, the famous nose squeezing.
Wait, tell me about this. I don't know about this.
You don't know about the nose squeezing?
Wait, a nose
Okay.
squeezing?
So when you get a nose job, obviously there's a lot of swelling, and especially in the tip. That's where it falls down to.
Okay.
So Dr. Berlet has a technique where he squeezes the nose
Really?
after
Okay.
administering a steroid shot.
Okay.
So it will reduce inflammation. So
Interesting. And so, like, so you would go in and he would squeeze. How often was this a regular?
this is every time. Every time if I go the next time I go in, I'll get my nose squeezed. Yes.
It's so funny.
So it's after the steroid is administered, he's able to show me what the finished product will look like by squeezing the nose.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so I remember the first time I was like, okay, like squeeze my nose. He's like, I'm gonna be able to show you what your nose is going to be able to look like.
Sweet. So tell me specifically about like this nose squeezing technique. Like I'm getting over a cold. Maybe he should have squeezed my nose. I'm just kidding. But so what does he do? Like, so it's like he comes in and it's this like, is it just his hand or what is he doing?
So first he'll administer the steroid shot.
Okay.
And then he'll put a piece of gauze over my nose and then squeeze it and then squeeze the tip. And
Okay.
what it will do is bring down all the swelling so that it will reveal to me what the finished product will look like.
I see. So it's like a temporary, so it just like a temporary compression?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It will go away, but it was such a, sense of relief that first time when the original nose job, when he squeezed it and I saw what my nose would look like, it felt like a weight was lifted off of me.
Oh, wow.
I felt like I had my confidence back. I felt like it was restored. And a nose is, a very important part of your face.
Of course. And you're so beautiful. I mean, everything is so beautiful that I'm sure like it's like when something isn't perfect, it's like just such a contrast to the rest of your face,
Yes,
right?
it made the rest of my face, look off when when you have a wide nose, it's making my rest of my face look even fuller.
Mm-hmm.
So after having the nose slimmed down and that beautiful slope and it being symmetrical, it totally enhanced the rest of my face.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's like there's like almost like a science to it where it's like once the nose changes, the rest of the face becomes slimmer and your cheekbones appear higher, and it's extremely
it's
important.
like the contour of the nose, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just felt really relieved. I thought that it was going to be a long journey ahead of me, but when he squeezed that nose, I knew I picked the right doctor.
Okay.
Because I saw it right away, and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted.
Okay. Do other doctors squeeze? Is this like a thing that they all do?
I have
don't
seen
even know.
it before
Okay.
in like I don't know if it was a TikTok video or something of a doctor squeezing a nose.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I get that done.
Okay. It's funny. But it is just really like for the shape and like just the compression piece of it, just to help.
Yes, just to see what it's going to look like, which at the time meant everything to me.
Yes, of course.
I had a year of my life with an extremely botched nose.
Ugh.
And as a 15-year-old, it was devastating. It's devastating to anyone.
But
in those years of your life,
that's like a critical time. That's right smack in the middle of high school, right? I mean, you have all your friends around, and you have to almost like do a year in hiding, right?
That's the year where everyone's getting their nose done. So you hear about someone getting their nose done, and you feel like that was me, and I was so excited, and then this is what happened. So,
and then it must be so difficult if you see someone who has a positive result, right?
It was, obviously I hoped that everyone had a positive result. I didn't want anyone to go through what I went through. Anyone that lived in the area that, I had, that was an area of who I got botched by, I would let them know immediately. Do not go to this person because I had a very terrible experience. Mm-hmm. And I reached out to him about it too, telling him that I was very, very unhappy with my nose. And, of course he used every lie in the book with something, this is wrong with that's wrong with it. It's a light perception, which light perception is a big part of noses. Mm-hmm. That's not a lie, but I could be in the dark and it was still botched. So
right. And it also sounds like the procedure, like if you every time you're an expert now. But every time you get a rhinoplasty, they're supposed to break the nose. You said, right?
Well,
it depends what you're doing. If it's just a tip versus like structure, right?
Honestly, I think that yes, you're supposed to. If it's a tip plasty, then no. But if it's a nose job, then yes, because when you have a bump in the nose and you file it down, it appears wider.
Okay.
So it's kind of like an effect of like you have it's like this. This is actually how your husband explained it.
Okay.
So this is the nose, but when you shave it down, it's like this.
Okay.
So then you need to break it so that it's like this.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't get it completely. Honestly, you should ask him. But from what I know,
we can have him talk about that. But yeah.
From what I know, that's how it works. But there is a risk. He was pretty sure that my nose wasn't originally broken.
Okay.
You can never be 100% sure. So he kind of told me that there are risks to breaking a nose again.
Okay. Right.
There are. Thankfully, everything went
Okay, because some people, so if you have it broken the first time, you can get a revision or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it could be broken again. Yes, but there's a risk factor. To this day, I don't know if my original nose, nose job, I don't know if it was broken during that period. I don't know. There's no way of me knowing. I was unconscious on the table, which a lot of people don't realize. It's such a vulnerable state when you're on that table. You could really get taken advantage of, and someone can really mess your face up, your body up. Yeah. You hear things a lot about things going wrong, and everyone's always like, that's not gonna be me.
Right.
I always thought that too. I never in a million years thought that I was gonna get botched.
Right, it just you assuming you're going in and expect positive results. Yeah.
I did, I expected positive results. My ears came out great. So I was like, my nose is going to come out great. And that was not the case.
Wow. I actually broke my nose playing water polo in college. And it was like, I had this moment where it got broken. And I went to the side of the pool and people were like, oh, don't worry, Carrie, you're still pretty. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my nose was like this. So I did have it reset by someone. But going through, and it's painful, the breaking of mine was naturally broken. So I'm sure maybe plastic surgeons have a more, strategic way to do it. But just having that period when I had that, crooked nose, it's so traumatic because it's such a big part of you, right?
Yes, you had to wear the cast as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And but it was funny because not everyone knew that I played, so everyone thought I had a nose job. It was a whole thing, but it was anyway, it did but yeah, I had to wear it, and I just remember it being painful, and you've now had to do this 3 times.
3 times, yes. I'm definitely not going for any more nose jobs.
Right, no, I think it looks great.
I definitely,
you look absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
I'm very, very satisfied with it. It's my dream nose. It's exactly what I wanted from the start.
Perfect. That's amazing.
I got my wish, but I had to go through some obstacles first.
Yes.
Which that's life.
Sometimes maybe the contrast now you appreciate having And even like just what other people who just, have bad nose, like you can just, maybe even talk to them about it, right? And relate to them, I guess, right?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely relate to people who, have had a bad plastic surgery experience. Yeah. Which my mom has been getting plastic surgery my whole life, and she never had a bad experience. Thank God. She never did.
Yeah.
So for it to happen to me, I was like shocked.
Yeah. I mean, and you're like now, so since you've had this done, because you're an influencer, like, so were you still like doing this, in your youth, like as you went through this process, or?
So I would say that the height of my career was during the time that I was going through all of this.
Really?
Yes, I would say that.
Wow.
I would say that that's the time where I was on the most podcasts, the most interviews, the most concerts.
And you had this battle going on, like, internally.
Yes.
Because you were so unhappy with yourself, but you still had to put on a brave face.
I put on a brave face, and I would just get very upset when people would find nothing wrong with it.
Right.
I would mention it to people. I was very, very open about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, until my grandmother and Dr. Berlet, like, there was no one that really agreed with the fact that it was botched.
Right.
I mean, of course, my parents ended up supporting me through the journey.
And are they're happy now? And like,
yes.
do they get what you?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's good.
My mom does tell me I completely understand what you mean now. Like, this is how my nose was supposed to look. Like, I feel like this is how it was always supposed to look.
So now
is like, I completely see what you were saying. She thinks that my nose now is absolutely stunning. She said it was the best decision, that she made to let me get another nose job and to let me go to Dr. Berlet and see what he had to say. He really saved me with my nose.
That's amazing.
And he changed my view on plastic surgery, because obviously after the first one I was a little anti-plastic surgery. Mm-hmm. But now I'm very open to it, as long as he's doing it.
Right. And what would you say, like, what questions, like, going back before you had the botched, like, was there something, I mean, I know you had trusted him because of your ears, but like, is there something like the right questions, if someone's watching and considering, having their nose done, like, what should they look for in a surgeon that will be an indication that, like, it should have a successful outcome? I mean, obviously it's never 100%, but, do you think there was something that you should have asked that you didn't?
So, I think a big thing is finding someone who potentially, someone that went to it.
That's always the best referral.
That's a referral is a great thing. Someone that you've seen their, work in person. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you don't have the ability to go to someone. Right. So I would say looking online to see their pictures, their before and afters, looking at their reviews. Mm-hmm. I would say even having conversations, like going to, a consultation and seeing what multiple doctors have to say. Mm-hmm. And, if you hear a doctor saying one thing and another doctor saying another, they get, a few different opinions.
Right.
It doesn't hurt to get opinions.
Right.
I think that
it's not something that should be rushed by any means.
It's not something that should be rushed. Not every surgeon does the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's something I had to learn as a 15-year-old, that they all have specialties.
Yep.
And they all have things that they're good at. And you could get yourself in this serious trouble if you don't go to someone who is experienced. Mm-hmm. Experience is the difference.
Yeah.
So that's something that Dr. Berlet has.
Yes, he has over 30 years now of experience. Yeah.
So
and I think also with him, because he was the architecture major, that somehow that structural, like, he has a gift. I mean, he's also an artist, so that's important. Like, it's not just like he has a technique that's like, I feel like it's just an artistic approach to the whole thing.
I've had conversations with friends, where, of course, he came up in conversation, about my nose. And I mentioned that I think that he's very good with things, with plastic surgery, especially like a nose, because of the fact that he also has experience in architecture and in designs. I think that plays a huge fact in him being able to have my nose come out so symmetrical.
Yeah, amazing.
You know, I forgot who it was, like, went in recently and told me that they told Dr. Berlet I want a nose like Angelica.
What a compliment that is, right?
Yes.
That like they're now it's like it's come so far from you being unhappy looking like a cat, and now they're like, I want Angelica's nose.
I've had people come up to me in the stores in the mall and telling me that they love my nose, that I have a beautiful
Wow.
nose.
Oh, that must be like so like validating,
Yes.
rewarding.
Yes, it's
like
it was definitely one of the best feelings in the world, especially because of everything I've been through. To hear that other people think that my nose
Yes.
is beautiful is a great thing to hear.
that's amazing.
So
Like, yes.
I'm very blessed to have found Dr. Berlet, because I don't know if I would be happy right now in my life if I didn't get my nose fixed.
Wow. So happy that like you got to this like happy ending.
Cheers.
All right. And we haven't even touched. We have crumble cookie here. This is how the cookie crumbles. So now we got to devour some cookies.
I'm gonna need lipo when we're done.
Well, I can tell you he's good at that. So, but I think you have a long way to go before you'll be in need of that. So, anyway, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you coming. I think that you will inspire a lot of young women who have been through some, or people that are considering. You've helped, give a plan of what you need to do, and you can recover, right? If you're upset with your result, like I admire your persistence, and you truly look stunning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is a big dream of mine, to share my story and to, warn people on the dangers that could potentially, lead you to getting botched. And, now at least people know what to look out for, the red flags.
Exactly.
And all I could say is go to Dr. Berlet to get your nose done, because it will come out great.
And then the follow-up nose squeeze. Right?
And the
Yes.
follow-up nose squeeze.
He's the best nose squeezer in the country. So thank you so much for watching Once Upon a Surgery. I really enjoyed talking to Angelica and hearing about this incredible transformation that had a little botched, unfortunately trauma along the way, but I am really thrilled that she had such a happy ending. I'd love to hear your comments, questions, and don't forget to subscribe to Once Upon a Surgery.